Today we're going to be making a waving flag made entirely out of wood. This flag is dedicated to the people of the Ukraine. May your hope never die, your strength never waver, and your flag never fail. Now we need to cut our 2x4. We have 7 pieces of 2x4x8, and we need to cut them in sections of 40¼ inches. So you should have 14 pieces total that are 40¼ inches. So let's get to cutting. Once we're done cutting everything, this is what it should look like. 14 pieces, each at 40¼ inches. Next, we need to print out this template. I'm including a link to this PDF file so that we can print it. We need this in order to stencil it onto the wood. This was created by the YouTube channel called Fisher Shop. They do amazing work there. We're going to have to print 2 copies of this, so I'm going to put the link in the description. So once we print the PDF file out, this is what it should look like. We want to grab this and stick it together with some tape, just like that. We're going to do it to the entire outline. We're going to stick it together, make sure everything is nice and plumb. And then once it's stuck together with tape, we're going to cut out this outline over here. And this outline is going to be the template that we use on the first 2x4. So let's start sticking these together, and then I'm going to cut it out. Simply going to put the piece of tape right there, just like that. Okay, now that we have our 14 pieces cut at 40¼ inches, I have to talk about something that's very important that I didn't before. So here is the stencil we have. This stencil is 40¼ inches long, but it's too short. The reason is that we have these markings that are separated by 3/4 of an inch. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes all the way up here to 13. So the reason we have that is because we need a mark on each wood at one of these numbers. So we're going to start with the 1. We're going to mark it. Then we're going to start with the second wood. We're going to mark it at 2. I'm going to show you. It seems a little bit confusing now, but it's actually super easy. So what we need to do is print out 2 of these stencils. Here's the other one I printed out. And what we're going to do is get page 2 and 3 from the second set of stencils. We don't need the rest. 2 and 3, you should be left with pages that start with the number 7. So as you can see here, this page starts with 7 and the third page has no numbers. What we're going to do with this is we're going to do the same thing we did with the first one. Stick them together, tape them, cut them out, and then we're going to attach it to the end of our stencil. So this one is going to be attached just like this. So we'll have this entire new stencil added to it. Because as we continue, you're going to see that we need more stencil. And again, it looks a bit confusing, but it's actually totally easy. This is what you should have left. This second piece right here, we cut it out, we stuck it together, and this is the end of the first piece, you can see here. So what we're going to do is we're going to line these up. Going to line these up to follow the same shape as the other one. So if you go like this, right about there, bam. Just line them up to make sure they're good. Once you've lined them up, you grab your tape and you hold them together. Now that we've attached our new stencil, it'll look like this. And this stencil is now 58¼ inches long. So I have a 1 inch by 4 inch wood over here that I've cut to the same size, but you could use a 2x4 as well, but this one's easier to cut. It was lying around, so let's use this one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the new elongated stencil, and we need to stick it to the bottom of the wood like this. Line it up to the sides, this side there. But before we do anything of sticking it with tape, you want to transfer these numbers right over here. These are very important numbers. They go from 2 to 13. We need to transfer these numbers to the wood so we know exactly where the measurements are. This second set of numbers, we don't have to worry about. it just came like this when I printed it out. So don't worry about these second sets. We're only worried about the ones that start on the left, the 2 through the 13. So instead of lining it up to the bottom completely like that, we're just going to pull it a little bit away like that so we can get our pencil and start making these marks. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once you've made your marks, make sure you write the number that it's associated with right next to it so that you know, okay, that one's 2, that one's 3, that one's 4. So we're going to do that before we actually stick it. So I'm going to grab my pencil, going to mark it up, and then after that, then we can line it up to the bottom just like that and stick it. And then we're going to grab our pen or pencil and we're going to outline the wave so that it's ready to be cut. So let's get started. And just like that, we've transferred our marks over. So let's get to tracing the top part. So as you can see here, it's only taped on the bottom part of this over here. This part, I simply held it down and then started outlining it just like this. And as you can see, we have the trace that's been transferred over and our numbers that are under here. So we are good to go. Now we get the jigsaw and we'll cut out this shape. You can remove this. We don't need this anymore. We're just going to be using the wooden one. Now that we've cut out our stencil wood right here, this is what it should look like. And now this part is extremely important. We need to get this shape over here and transfer it to each individual wood using a pen or pencil. Now here's where it gets very important. If you're looking at the flag, you need to start from the bottom. So this is the bottom over here. You're looking over here at the top. So you need to start from the bottom, which is this wood here, and you need to start marking it from the left side to the right side. Let me switch the camera around so I can show you what I'm talking about. So this is the bottom of the flag. And we have our stencil right here, which I love to call this a stencil. So we're going to start with the bottom one. We're going to grab it. We're going to turn it on its face like that. And we're going to grab this and we're going to make sure it's flush from the sides. It's going to be flush like that. It's going to be flush on the bottom. And it's going to be just like that. Then we're going to grab our pencil or pen and we're going to outline it. Holding it down, make sure it doesn't move. You're going to outline it. Once you're done outlining it, we need to label this as 1. All of them have to have a number. So I've already labeled this one as 1 so that I know that once I cut it, this one goes here. This one will be labeled as 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on until you get to 14. So here's where it gets interesting. Once we're done with the first one, we set it aside. Or you can just put it on top. Then we're going to go to the number 2. We have over here a number 2, 3, 4, and so on. So we're going to put this flat just like this. And we're going to get it flush on the bottom. And we're going to go to the number 2 over here. You want the number 2 to be flush with this one over here. Once you have it like that, you'll be able to get it nice and steady like this. And then once again, we're going to outline it. We're good with that one. We label it as number 2. Then we go to number 3. Put it flat like this. Oops. Let's move the camera. Once we go to number 3, we're going to go to the number 3 over here and make sure the number 3 is flush with the side. It's going to be flush on the bottom, just like that. You're going to hold it steady and once again mark it. We're going to keep on going down these numbers until we get to the last one. You have to make sure that you mark these numbers on the side because if you do not mark it, here's my 3 over here, you might get it confused and you will throw the wave pattern off. So it is imperative that on the end, you mark it 1 through 14 and you ensure that 1 is always on the bottom of the flag and 14 is always at the top of the flag. And we're going to keep on doing that to all 14 of them. And once we're done with that, we can start cutting them. Now that we're done outlining all 14 pieces of wood, I realized I made a mistake in my previous clips. So this wooden stencil that we have here was only marked up to number 13, but we have 14 pieces of wood. That was my bad. I added the number 14 as I got to the end. So these numbers are separated by 3/4 of an inch. So if you wanted to make your flag smaller, you would just have to get rid of some numbers. So this size right here is 22 inches by 40¼ inches. If you wanted to make it smaller, just take away a number, take away 2 numbers. So remember, every number is separated by 3/4 of an inch. And there should be 14 numbers on this ruler if you're doing this size flag. Now it's time to cut all 14 pieces of wood. Now, if you had a bandsaw, this would probably be quicker, but I don't, so I'm gonna use a jigsaw. I'm gonna put a fresh blade on the jigsaw and we're gonna start cutting. All we're doing is tracing these lines. We're gonna be using the smaller piece. There'll be two pieces that come out, a thicker one and a smaller one. We're gonna be using the smaller one. Hearing protection, eye protection, very important, and let's get to cutting. This is gonna take a minute, so patience is a virtue. Let's get to it. Once you're done cutting, this is what everything should look like. We've lined it all up and you can already see a wave pattern forming. But now we need to soften these hard edges like that. Everything is numbered again. Here is, the numbers are on this side. Right here, this is number 1 through 14. This is the top of the flag, this is the bottom of the flag. So we need to hold this flag in place while we use our angle grinder. So I have these 36-inch steel bar clamps that I got on Amazon, and we're going to hold it together on the side like that. Make sure it is nice and tight, and once you've got that down, we can start. So I'm using this DEWALT grinder over here with a 40 grit disc. I've never used this disc before, so we're gonna see how it works out, but it says it's 40 grit and it's a 4.5 inch disc. We're gonna start taking down these hard edges all along the place, try to soften it out more. Real quick, once you're done cutting, you might notice that some pieces of wood may be taller than others. There might be dents that you made while cutting this. It doesn't have to be a perfect cut. This part of cutting each individual board is very tedious, but as long as we do the grinding right and the sanding, then we'll be all good. So any imperfections we'll get rid of. We just want to make sure that all of these rough, jagged areas get sanded down, grinded down so they're smooth waves. So again, be careful with the angle grinder, wear hearing protection, eye protection, all that good stuff. Let's get started. And this is what it should look like once you're done with your angle grinder. As you can see, the sharp edges are mostly gone and it's looking nice and wavy. So now we need to start sanding it. I'm going to start with an 80 grit sandpaper and we're going to go up to probably 120. We just want to make it smoother. If you don't have an orbital sander, you can just use a sheet of sandpaper. But I do have an orbital sander, so we're going to use it now to start smoothing everything out. So I just realized that I don't have my orbital sander with me. I lent it to someone. So I have this old sander here that I'm going to use. I have 80 grit sandpaper on this and I've already made a few passes and it's doing awesome. We're going to make passes until we feel it's good. Then we're going to switch the sandpaper and keep on going, and we're doing awesome. And this is what it should look like once you're done with the 120. I ended up only using the 80 grit and directly went over to the 120 grit. And I used 2 pieces of 80 grit and then just 1 piece of 120 grit. And it is ready. It looks amazing. It is smooth. We are ready to go. Now that we finished, we can start painting. So we could do it one of a couple of ways. We could use a stain, we could use latex, acrylic paint. I'm gonna go with the latex paint. But if you wanted to use a stain, this could make a really nice rustic flag. But we're doing the colors of the Ukrainian flag, which has to be this blue and yellow type of color. So I'm just gonna use the latex paint. What I'm gonna do, since there's 7 for the top and 7 for the bottom, I'm going to take them apart and then just paint them. As we put this together, we need to put screws, one to hold it to the next, to hold it to the next. You're going to see how I'm going to do it. We're going to put wood glue in between so it's really sturdy, and we're going to start doing it all the way down. But this is now it's the easier part. We're at the end of it. We're going to paint it, and let's see how it comes out. Before we start painting, we have to make sure we got rid of all the dust. So if you have a leaf blower or pressurized air, use it to get rid of all the dust. Then I used a wet rag to wipe it down to get any remaining dust out. I have here the paint samples that are from Lowe's. They're 7.25 ounces and they only cost $4 each. I have Cosmic Blue and Golden Spell. We're going to use these two colors. So since the flag is divided in two colors, I'm going to be getting number 7 and number 8. Remember, we labeled all of these. So I'm going to get 7 and 8. I'm going to take them out. I'm going to paint them. One blue, one yellow. Then I'm going to start drilling all of these pieces together, because once it's drilled together, I can paint it as a whole unit. And you're going to see, it might sound a little confusing what I mean, but we're going to actually get this, we're going to drill it to this, and then this one's going to be drilled to that one. And we're going to put some wood glue in the middle so it can be really, really steadfast, and that's it. So let me paint the middle ones, and then we can begin gluing everything else. While we wait for our other pieces to dry, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be gluing all of this together and screwing it together. So there's two ways you can do it. You can grab number 1, which is the bottom of the flag, turn it over on its side like this, apply a little bit of glue. Just glue like over here and spread it with your finger. And then we're going to get number 2 and going to put it on top like that. So this part is very important. We need to make sure everything is flush and nice and level and there's no jagged edges. So once you have it good, you're like, okay, I feel everything, it's good. Then we're going to use our countersink right over here, and we're going to make 3 holes, 2 and 3, or 1, 2 and 3 over here. You want to use the thickest part of the wood. You see these over here. And once we do that, we're going to use 2.5-inch screws, and we're going to stick this one to the bottom one. Then we're going to move on to number 3. Same thing over here, apply some glue, countersink, screws. Then we're going to go to number 4, and so on and so forth. And we're going to countersink right here. So this is what the first one should look like. As you can see, I put 1 screw right there, 1 screw here, and 1 over here. And this is perfect. There you go. It's ready to go. So, a tip. I tried doing it like this on the side, and I found it to be a little bit complicated. And then I did it like this, and it was a tad easier. But in the end, I ended up doing it sideways like this. So really, whichever one feels better for you, to do it sideways like this, or to stack them up and then screw them in just like that. So I'm probably going to do a mixture of both to get it going, and we'll see how it goes.